Hello, class. I want to welcome Western Civilization 105 to week 13. We are close to the end, and I think that you all are agreeing with me that the information that we are covering is highly relevant. And I think that many of you really are enjoying the fact, sometimes maybe even a little bit shocked, that you're learning so many things that you never had the opportunity to learn. This is what college can do for you. This is the value of knowledge. And I hope that you appreciate that, because not everyone does. And this section, as we covered the origins of all these ideologies now, right? Now we get into the Cold War. So much of what we've covered is now super, super, super relevant. I mean, I don't know when it's not going to be relevant. History is always relevant, but right now this is really relevant. So I would have loved to show you more and more surprises and added information for World War II. In my announcements, I gave you all little tidbits, something, for instance, the treatment of Jehovah's Witnesses by the Nazis and the wearing of the purple triangle, something that you were not aware of, many of you. Just to say, actually, the Jehovah's Witnesses were targeted quite badly in the United States and the Soviet Union. Part of what always made their, and it still does to this day, but what has made life for Jehovah's Witnesses tricky is they refuse to be involved in politics, official politics, right? They don't vote, they don't join the military, and they will not do Pledge of Allegiance to any flag. And so you can imagine, so in World War II, I actually knew an older Jehovah's Witness. He passed away now, may he rest in peace. He spent time in prison as a conscientious objector in the United States for not going to war in World War II. And this is in the United States. Excuse me. Oh, goodness, sorry. Witnesses in World War I and World War II sometimes would get mobs of people attacking them, tarring and feathering them. They were viewed as communist all the way up to the Vietnam War. That reputation has it's no long. Most people know that that's not the case. But they were accused of being communist or unloyal here because they weren't fighting in the wars or some other nationalist issues they had. While in the communist countries, they were accused of being basically not supporting national causes by getting involved in the war efforts and the national stuff as well. And, if you saw the documentary clip, Jehovah's Witnesses would not do the Heil Hitler, as many people were greeting each other. And so people would say, Heil Hitler. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses would say, hello, how are you doing today? And that meant, ooh, you're not participating in this. And that caused them a lot of problems, a lot of problems. So a nice little surprise for you to learn about. Not a nice situation, but, right? Information to learn. So now we're going in the Cold War. And we're coming out of it, and it's really relevant. The hostility to the S word, to socialism, as I've been going over this with you, in the United States is by far, I think, unique compared to so many other parts of the world that I've been in. I've been in many countries that are highly capitalist. I believe Hong Kong here has what would be considered socialist medicine. This is not a socialist society. For the United States, even bringing up the idea that you would like to have socialized medicine or Medicare for all, just even call it universal health care to actually put together, it's almost like you're trying to make America into North Korea. And I'm just pointing out that this is something that comes from the Cold War. In Europe, there were much larger communist and socialist parties, and the powers that be had to pacify often and concede to certain desires and demands of socialists within Europe so they wouldn't go to the Russian side. I think I mentioned this into one of my announcements. The United States wasn't in that position. And so here we've just kept this a dirty word. And so I just saw on the internet that the Republican Party in the United States now is trying to create, or maybe they did create, an anti-socialist coalition right now. Because of Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, basically, and some other candidates that are having this kind of views. So, I mean, here we have a very old man and a very young girl that have become quite popular, using that word again, and it's creating a massive sense of panic. Fox News is mentioning this stuff all the time. They're making up false stories about Denmark, and I've watched them. It's quite, but it's all rooted during this time. My great aunt and uncle will not even have a conversation about this stuff. It's a shutdown. It's a shutdown conversation. It's something from the older folks, because this was something that was a big deal. So I just want you to understand the context, about this. So yeah, you learn about this time period. Now, what's interesting, you're going to see these videos, and then by next week, we're going to slide into the war on terror and really get some understanding of things. And I have to leave out a lot of information that's quite significant. What I do want to point out, and I'm not going to say much here on this, is because I'm in Hong Kong, and it is officially free, but one must use caution here. I am very close to mainland China. They have a different set of standards I respect, and censorship. It's expected that you should understand that you are being observed, and it's hopeful that you would be in your best behavior. And I get it. But I went to the bookstore, so I bought one here. And this comes from, it's a Western book. I mean, it's written by a Westerner. I think it's a British academic. It's called Everything You Need to Know About the New China, The World According to Xi, by Kerry Brown. So Kerry Brown is a Western academic. He's an expert on China. And he's writing about this is the current leader of China. And he is a big deal, let's put it this way. If you don't know about Xi, you need to look him up. He is doing some very different things. He's making China grow and develop in certain ways. But why I'm bringing this up is because what you need to understand is that China, since the 70s, after Mao died, the founder of the communist state, switched their economy to capitalist means. They kept the Communist Party in power. They still are. Largest communist party in the world. I think there's officially around 88 million party members of the Chinese Communist Party. But their economy now is, it's called socialism with Chinese characteristics. It's essentially capitalism. That's how a lot of Westerners would call it. And while in the past, even in my lifetime, the West would demonize or look down on China. China now is seen in a very different light. Mao, despite the controversy of his legacy, is kind of being looked upon as like a Charlemagne of China. And I just want to read to you what this pro-capitalist Western writer has to say. And this is very telling, just from this book. He says, we are all, referring to everybody in the world, really, but he's talking about the West now. And by the way, he gets praise. His book gets praise from The Economist, an old British big capitalist magazine. It's not a leftist guy or a socialist at all. Okay, he says, we are all stakeholders in Xi's leadership and in its success. The collapse of China used to be, in the era of Mao, a real likelihood. Today, it would bring about Armageddon. Global supply chains, capital flows, and security would be undermined, perhaps fatally. The pillar of stability is the most critical, in the most critical region for growth in the world would be eroded, leading to a tsunami of knock-on effects across the rest of the world. It is no longer a question of containing China. China now contains us. Its failure would be ours. For this reason, Xi is a global leader. And then he said, we would be thankful that the leadership is not as volatile in Beijing as it currently is in Washington. That's his poke at Trump. So here's this Western capitalist leader basically saying, she's the world leader. I pay attention to him more than Trump in the United States. Now, I'm not actually saying this to make a poke at our president either. And I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with these comments. What I'm trying to point out is you would never see something like this written in the past. So while you're learning about the Cold War and the origins of it, keep in mind that the world, and especially in the context of China, that is still officially a communist country, it's a very different ballpark. It's a very different game being played now. And so don't get confused. Don't get hung up on the labels. You got to look at the history. You got to see what's going on and understand. I'm living in a part of the world right now that everybody know who's the Papa Bear here. Okay? So that's it. That's all I got to say on that. And I hope that you all are having a great week. Contact me again if there's anything that you need. If there's a question on anything. Oh, the last thing I'm going to say, the Israel-Palestine conflict is kind of mentioned in the video as well. It's certainly escalating under Netanyahu. If you have any questions about that as well, that is my expertise, but not necessary to go over unless you want to, but I'm just throwing that out there. Have a blessed, we'll be in touch. Goodbye.